Well, I promised that if I ever got to 1,000 subscribers, I would make a video answering this question, and people have asked me this question a lot. So even though I wanted, at first I was just going to make a joke video, I I think that enough people are serious about this question that it's worth giving a nuanced, detailed answer regarding. So, without further ado, is it a sin to be a furry? Let's get into it. First and foremost, I'd like to define some terms. And rather than using somebody else's definition, I made my own definition because it's my video and I'll do what I want. When I say furry, this is what I mean. What is a furry? I say a furry is a subjective title that people decide to use for themselves, usually but not exclusively to represent one or more of a variety of common interests surrounding real or fictional animals, generally with human traits or vice versa. This is a specific term that refers to a very broad spectrum of interests, and this is a subjective term. This is an identity that people claim for themselves. Think about it like this: back in the day, a lot of people used to watch this TV show called Star Trek, and they had movies and stuff like that. And sometimes they would have conventions, and they had languages, and people could build models, and people could go to these conventions and dress up and learn Klingon and all these other things. And you could do all of these things and still just say, I like Star Trek, and that's that, and that's the end of it. Or you could like some or all of these things, and you can say, you know what, I am a Trekkie, right? This is a subjective term that the person uses to describe themselves to reflect their interest in these categories of things. It's kind of similar with the term furry. Is you're not going to go to the doctor and you're going to get your blood drawn, and you're like, what is it, doctor? Is it AB positive? And the doctor's going to say, no, it's furry. I diagnose you with furry, and it's terminal, right? This is this is something that people claim for themselves. It's a title that people claim for themselves. And the frustrating aspect of this is that it can mean so many different things. It can mean something as simple as this person likes drawing cartoon animals. And so they use this term to reflect that they like to draw cartoon animals, whatever. This person likes watching TV shows with cartoon animals. Think Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, or Disney, something like this. That could be enough for a person to claim this identity for themselves. Or it can be something like all the way down at the end of the spectrum where this person dresses up like, the 7-foot-tall, blue-haired, husky dog, whatever, and goes to conventions and has other people refer to them as, I don't know, Barconius Wolfenstein or something like that. Like, it could be any number of things and any combination therein, and the person subjectively chooses either to or not to call themselves by this identity. So this is why it's hard to answer the question. So for a lot of that spectrum, I would say that no, it is not inherently sinful. It's not sinful to draw cartoon animals. It's not sinful to watch cartoons that have animals in them. It's not sinful to play make-believe and to, whatever. Like, it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. That's not inherently sinful. But there are parts of the culture, parts of the identity that absolutely are sinful if a person engages in them. So one example of this is the most obvious one is the sexual aspect of this sort of community or a group of interests. And a person doesn't have to necessarily be interested in those things for them to claim that identity. But the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people who would claim that title for themselves. And they mean it in the sense that they engage in those adulterous, sinful behaviors. Now, Jesus says, you've heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you, anyone who looks at a woman with lust has committed adultery in their heart. He's basically saying that any sort of sexual activity, fantasy, or otherwise outside of marriage is sinful. And then he defines marriage. He says, for this reason, a man and a woman shall leave their parents, and the two shall become one flesh, or something like that. It's I think it's said like multiple times in Genesis. And anyways. So then Jesus defines marriage as one man and one woman. So he clearly defines this perimeter. He says everything outside of the perimeter is explicitly sinful in terms of sexuality. Sexuality is confined to marriage. It is God-pleasing in marriage. Outside of marriage, it is not. So with that, anything that's kind of outside of those boundaries is automatically sinful. any sort of fantasy, any sort of, going to websites that you shouldn't be going to, drawing things you shouldn't be drawing, fantasizing about things you shouldn't be fantasizing. All of that is absolutely explicitly sinful. But then again, that isn't necessarily a part of the person who claims this title for themselves, the person who calls themselves a furry. But any of that sexual aspect is, the moment any of that is introduced, yes, it's sinful. And you should run from that sin. Every other sin is outside of the body, but this sin is against your own body, that kind of thing. I mean, this is God warns against these sins for a reason. They are pernicious. They are dangerous. They are harmful. They degrade the relationship that God intended for humanity, the distinction and men and women being married. Anyways, here's another aspect of that could be a part of somebody's identity when they claim to be a furry that would make it sinful: the denial of your human identity. Now, I know that there are specific categories or specific titles for groups of furries who consider them this. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't care, and it's my video, and I'm just going to call you all furries because that makes it simple for me. Is the denial of human identity. So this is when somebody goes to the, reaches a mental state where they're denying their humanity. They're claiming to be a wolf trapped in a human's body, or the soul of a. This is something that I've heard from somebody, that they have the soul of a dragon trapped in a human body, confined to their human body, but they can feel their ethereal wings and tail and all this stuff. Like, the moment you start denying that you are actually the human that you are, that's crossing the line into sinful, into that sinful territory. Now, God made them man and female. He created them. God made you a human. God made humans, and then he made animals, and he made the sun and the moon and the stars and trees and plants and fish and crawly things all over the earth. He made all of these things, but he made them distinct from one another. So when he made humans, he made you a human because that's something special, made in the image of God. You do not have the authority to deny that God made you the human and you are actually a non-human whatever, right? So if that's what you mean by, you call yourself a furry, then yes, that is absolutely sinful. Here's a third example of a way that this title can be sinful, depending on how a person uses it: the negligence of duties and responsibilities. Now, this can go, I mean, you see this with people who maybe they get addicted to online gaming and they care so much about their World of Warcraft character that they neglect to take care of their physical body. They neglect to take care of their responsibilities to their family members, to their job, to whatever. If this gets to a point where this person is fixated so much on this fictional character that they've created, their wolf or fox or whatever, and they're wasting all of their money. They can't pay their bills because they're spending all their money paying people to draw pictures of their fox being, super strong or super suave or something, beautiful or whatever. When you start neglecting your duties, neglecting your responsibilities, neglecting taking care of yourself, by the way, God gave you your body to take care of. You're a steward of your body. Neglecting these things, and instead, thinking, well, that doesn't matter because no matter how much I let myself go, my character will always have, a six pack and will always be the smartest one in the room and tough and shoot lasers and all these other things. Negligence of duties, negligence of responsibilities. This is sinful. And if this is what you mean when you say that you're a furry, then this is absolutely sinful, if that's an aspect of it. So these are some examples. I'm sure there are other examples that I could come up with, and we'll see if more of this topic gets discussed. Because I imagine a lot of people are not going to want to watch this video. I wonder why. But if those are aspects of what you mean when you call yourself a furry, then absolutely they are sinful. Now, can you be a furry without having those aspects? I mean, yeah, you absolutely could. If this is what you mean, is you mean you like watching these cartoons, or you like drawing things or whatever, and it's not these sinful things, then yeah, that's not sinful. It's not sinful to play make-believe. It's not sinful to draw or to watch cartoons either. Those things aren't inherently sinful. And I know the kind of knee-jerk Christian response is to look at it and say, yeah, it's sinful. I mean, it's weird, therefore it's sinful. But if you're being fair, you have to clearly delineate, you can't just call everything that's weird a sin. I mean, a lot of weird stuff is sin, but you just don't, like, you have to be precise. You can't just make stuff up and say, you know what? I'm not even gonna sort through this. It's all sin, right? That's the easy way out. And that's not the way that you should take as a Christian. You should be discerning. You should be specific. You should be precise. Now, let's say you call yourself a furry and you don't engage in the sexual aspect. You don't deny your human identity. You aren't negligent of your duties, but for whatever reason, you still call yourself a furry. Even if it's not sinful, the question comes up then, is it a good idea? Now, again, this community, and this is from my interaction with all kinds of people online, is that this community is regularly just steeped in sin. This is, I mean, that's kind of the reality of most communities, to be honest, but it's just more, I don't know if it's more prevalent, but it's more obvious in this case. There are dangers in associating with groups of people who promote sin and say, you should sin. It's good to sin. Here's how you can sin. Let me help you sin. That's dangerous. Even if it's not sinful, is it a good idea? Do you, as a Christian, really want to associate and use the same title as these other people who are clearly engaging in obviously sinful activity? That's a question you're going to have to ask your own conscience, because it's not really clear. You can, again, pull up other examples of other groups of people and say, should I be associating with Marines? Should I call myself a Marine? Because Marines do tend to be drunk and debaucherous. Yes, they do. Should I be associating with that? As a Christian, obviously Christianity should be your primary identity, but should you be, is this something that you want to associate with? My advice to you is, if you like cartoons and you like drawing and you like playing make-believe and you like playing games and you like your D&D character and all these other things, then be a Christian who likes those things. You don't have to make it an identity. There's no rule that says, look, you like drawing, cartoon lions or whatever, that you're a furry. Like, there's no rule. You don't have to. You don't have to take on that title. Nobody's going to force you to take on that title, and other people can call you a furry, and you just be like, nope, nope. So my advice to you would be, if you haven't taken that title on, don't take on that title. And if this title is so important to you, I would ask the question of why? Why is it so important that you retain this title of furry? Why is it essential that you call yourself by this title? Maybe you have a good reason. But this is a legitimate question that I would like you to ask yourself. Why is it important that you identify yourself with this title? What is to be gained? What is the confusion that could be caused by other people seeing this title? And then for those of you who do retain the title, who do retain the self-identity of furry, what kind of people are you hanging out with? Who are you associating with? Are you going into the communities where they engage in immorality and they encourage you to engage in immorality? That's not a good idea. It's not. Even if you're not directly sinning, this is soul poison. This is something that is hanging temptation in your face. This is something where other people are encouraging you to sin, whether, again, the sexual aspect, the denial of human identity, or the negligence of your duties. There are people who are going to encourage you to sin. So if you're going to be a part of the community, at least be a part of a Christian community. I know that there are Christians who call themselves furries. I know them. I know a lot of them, in fact. They're the ones who most of all are asking these questions because they legitimately don't want to be sinning, but they don't know if what they're doing is sin because, the Bible doesn't say thou shalt not be a furry. Like, it's not as clear cut as that. So again, why is the title important to you? Is this something that is in conflict with your Christian identity, which should take priority, even exclusivity? Or is this something that can be a part of your identity? So for example, I'm a Christian, I'm a father, I am a husband, I am a pastor, I'm a Marine, right? I'm a soldier too. I'm all of these different things, but all of these things fall under the category of I am a Christian. This is, these are other aspects of my humanity. Can you do the same thing with your title of furry? Can you do that? You can answer that question because you alone know what that means to you, what that subjective title means to you. You are the one who claims it for yourself. And if this is something that you want to hang on to, and you've got a good reason to hang on to it, and this is just, maybe it's just shorthand for how you identify your interests, go seek out a Christian group. Go seek out a group of of Christians who, I don't know, who are furries or who call themselves furries or whatever, but go seek out some Christians. Surround yourself with Christians. Now, obviously, go to church. You should be doing that. You should be surrounded with Christians, not just in your online communities or whatever, but obviously in person. You shouldn't be alone trying to figure out how to, cling onto your faith in surrounded by all these, distractions and temptations and stuff like that. Well, I hope that answered that age-old question. Is it a sin to be a furry? I promised that I would do this video if I got to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I did not expect it to happen so quickly. This was actually a very, very requested topic by a lot of people. So I hope I answered it sufficiently and not too many people were offended. For those of you who expected me to do a 5-second long video, you can feel free to take this next clip completely out of context and then paste it whenever anybody asks the question about furries. You probably expected this response. Is it a sin to be a furry? Yes. And the wages of sin is death. So go ahead and take that out of context. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it answered the question. And I don't mind talking about this topic more in detail. Please leave any questions or comments you have in the comment section down below. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend and God bless.